Welcome to the Women Empowerment Awards podcast, where we firmly believe that we rise by lifting others. The Women Empowerment Podcast is a platform for women to share their personal stories and experiences, trials and triumphs, to have their voices heard, to promote, inspire, and motivate other women. We want to share the journey of women leaders and entrepreneurs from all industries and sectors who have made an outstanding impact in our society and empower others to do the same. The Women Empowerment Awards Gala is being held Wednesday, September 21st at the Shangri-La Hotel in Toronto. Although the gala is now sold out, you can still grab your tickets to the after-party networking event where you can meet over 250 highly influential and inspiring individuals. Grab your tickets today at eventbrite.com or go to our website, which is www.woea.ca, and let's celebrate together. Enjoy the podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Women Empowerment Podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Gideon, and it is such a pleasure today to introduce my guest, Reetu Gupta, who is the chairwoman and ambassadress of the Gupta Group. Reetu, thank you so much for being here today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So this is so wonderful. You know what? It's so funny because when I read the word ambassadress, I think like badass in a dress. Am I wrong?
That is the first time I've heard that. That is amazing. I think I need to change my title to that.
It's like
That's
the first
awesome.
thing I thought of, badass in a dress. I'm like, where do I get that title? That's amazing.
I love it.
I'm so happy that you're here with us. Congratulations on your nomination. You know what? I always love to dive in and understand a little bit of everybody's background because I do really feel like how we grew up, where we grew up, it really shapes who we are. So can you tell us a little bit about early life, what it was like for you, and how you feel it shaped who you are today?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so interesting. So early life, I would say being a child, and I was born in Scarborough. And I always tell people that because, as you said, the badass comment sometimes my language might reflect more of the Scarborough side of me. So just as a disclaimer, born in Scarborough. You know what? At that time, so this was so many years ago now, I don't know if I should reveal my age, but many moons ago, our company wasn't where it is today. So my siblings and I really had the opportunity to see how hard my parents would work and to see how they grew the business. And it was just interesting the way that we grew up. I don't know if you were part of the generation where in school, did you ever have scholastic book orders? So you would get this little, yes, you get this little paper brochure and you would take it home. And I'm a huge geek. I love to read. And at that time, I would ask my mom to get one or two books and they would say no. They would say, why? Just go to the library and borrow the book. And it's one of those things where they really taught us the value of money so young. Although the book was what, $3 or $4, but they taught us at that young age, go to the library, borrow it, you can get it back, and then you can borrow something else. And they really taught us values at such a young age that I feel today has made such a big impact on who I am. On top of that, I would go with my dad to construction sites. I don't know, it's interesting because I didn't have boots or a hat or anything, but my dad had no problem. I would run around those construction sites, and there was something that was so interesting and something that would just draw me into those sites and to real estate and to hotels. One day was so funny. My dad was driving me to school. Usually my mom drives me. So my dad's driving me to school and we're talking, we're chatting, and he takes the wrong exit. So now I know he's taking me to office. And I didn't say anything because I secretly really wanted to go to work. I was a very weird kid. So when my dad realized, he turned the car around and I started crying and I said, no, I don't want to go to school. I want to go to work. So I was almost that strange kid that I looked forward to going to office. I looked forward to the days that I would be a grown up and I would be where I am today.
Wow, that's amazing. And when you mentioned about the scholastic and doing the library instead, you don't think about it as a kid. You probably were like, oh, that's not fair. I want the book, all that kind of stuff. But reflecting back, you really understand what that does for you and how that really changes your view on everything.
100%, because they were trying to teach us the principle of, okay, you're going to save money and you're going to understand that this costs X amount, but you can save that money by going to the library. And they were also showing me the value if you go to the library and you have this huge world of books. There were so many lessons in that, but you're right. As a kid, you just hear no, and you don't really understand that until you're much older.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's good. That's so cool. I really love that. And you brought me back in time with the scholastic. I love it. So you were mentioning that as a little girl, your dad would take you to the construction site and you loved that world. But was there something that you remember when you were younger? When I grow up, I want to be. What did you dream of becoming when you were younger?
Oh my God, it's so embarrassing. So I've always loved hotels. And embarrassing story that I'm apparently now going to tell the world. Whenever we would go to construction sites, I remember there was one point we were in Port Hope, Ontario. This is where my dad started Easton's, and they were putting down new tar for the road. And the smell of that till this day gets me excited about construction. It is so incredibly insane to me. But if I smell that smell, it reminds me of the childhood excitement
Yes.
of going to a new construction site. And I think for me, as a child, I wanted to be many things. I wanted to be a writer, I wanted to be a dancer, but the first and foremost thing was I loved hotels. And I really wanted to be in that industry. I remember when I visited my first hotel, it was in Florida. My parents were going there for a hotel convention. And it was the Marriott World Center in Orlando. And I was really small then. So I walked in and it was just this huge lobby. And the guest service agent was so sweet. And she came around the counter and sat on the ground with me, gave me crayons, gave me a coloring book. And I remember thinking, she's the coolest woman in the world. And I want to be her one day. So for me, that was also a huge turning point that I knew hotels is just where I need to be.
There's something so magical about hotels. I find they really put a stamp on a city. Like a lot of cities are known for their hotels. And if you name off certain cities like New York City or Paris, for example, there's those trademark hotels. There's something really magical about them. So I feel like that's how you felt about them when you were younger. You felt the magic.
100%. You made my day. That is exactly verbatim how I feel. I always feel that hotels have this magic. And when you get to go to cities like Paris or New York or Toronto, we have great hotels here.
Yes.
It leaves, you want to stay somewhere where you're going to feel that magic. So I 100%, you nailed it. That is exactly how I feel about hotels.
Me too. Me too. And traveling. I love to travel. But so along your path in childhood, it sounds like your family was really pivotal for you in carving out who you were. Maybe it was your family, but was there anybody else who was pivotal to you throughout your journey? And if so, how?
Interesting. So, as growing up as a child, of course, my parents were very much there to motivate me, to inspire me. Interestingly enough, though, they didn't actually expect that I was going to go into the business. It's very much of a South Asian thing where they want you to be a doctor or a lawyer and you have no other options. So,
Okay.
despite my parents, despite the fact that I worked every summer, I was also volunteering in hospitals and trying to understand medicine. And when I was in high school, I took all the science courses thinking I'm going to medicine because a doctor and a lawyer are my only two choices. So actually, when I was in OAC, because I'm that old and I had grade 13.
Me
So
too.
when I was going into, so when I was going into OAC grade 13 that no longer exists, that's when I realized, what am I doing? I love business. I can't stand the sight of blood. I'm just in the wrong direction. So that's when I completely changed all my courses and decided to go into business. But in terms of an inspiration now in adult life, there's a guru that we follow in India. So the word guru in Sanskrit means remover of darkness. And guru in India is a teacher. So we met him now about 12 years ago. And his teachings are not religious, they're very spiritual. It's about living life with happiness. It's about pursuing your dreams. So I feel that for me, he has been saying pivotal isn't giving it enough weight. So we'll say pivotal because I don't know what other word to use, but having him in my life and having that guidance and just those small quotes here and there I feel like has changed my life.
Yeah. So life changing. That's probably the better word for your
Yes.
guru.
Yes.
Yes. Wow. That's so special. So is that somebody who's in your life constantly, like on a daily, weekly basis? How do you interact with this person?
I wish it was daily or weekly. So he's in India. He lives in India.
Oh.
He lives in a little kind of straw hut. He has nothing. He doesn't have any belongings, but his hut or his kutia in Hindi is at an ashram in India. So pre-COVID, we would go there at least once a year. Sometimes he travels to Toronto and my family and I have done events for him to bring other people to receive his blessings and to hear his discourse. But to be honest, the way that I connect with him is via meditation. I do meditation every day. And when I connect to the universe, that's how I get messages. But unfortunately, I don't get to speak to him daily or weekly or monthly. It's once a year, if that.
But it's still such an impact on you that you carry his messages around every day.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Oh, that's so beautiful. Wow. How did your family company, the Gupta Group, how did it begin?
Oh my God, amazing story. So my dad came to Toronto with $108 in his pocket. And he also actually came to Toronto with dreams of having a hotel. So there was a site in Port Hope, Ontario, which is about an hour east of here. And it was a little truck stop. It wasn't even a gas station. It was just a small diesel, small truck stop. In the basement, there was maybe 2 or 3 beds for any truck drivers that were driving down the 401 that needed to make that pit stop. So when my dad, he saw a huge opportunity here. So he purchased that truck stop, decided it's actually a really long story. He actually went through a lot of racism at that time too, because that town
Mhm.
was not multicultural. It was all Caucasian. And my dad comes in there, brown man, buys this truck stop, and there was a lot of racism. And my dad is so freaking strong. So apparently some of the attendants, to be honest, that pumped gas, once my dad bought it, they refused to work for him. So my dad, in his suit and tie, said, okay, pumped gas himself. And when the truck drivers saw that, they went on their intercoms and they all said, everyone needs to come to this truck stop. And this guy, he's someone of character. My dad saw the need for a hotel, so he built a hotel on that site. He eventually put an Esso there, Swiss Chalet, Harvey's. And from there, everything just expanded. And that's when we started getting sites here in Toronto. And now we have 20 hotels across Ontario and Quebec. And we also have our high rise developments.
Wow.
He's amazing.
Wow.
We could talk about him for another hour. So.
Holy smokes. Talk about struggle and talk about creating an empire out of that. What an amazing person. And so for you to grow up having this person in your life, the things that he's taught you, no wonder you are where you are today as well. When we have those very strong people in our life, that's so
Absolutely.
amazing.
Absolutely.
Wow, that story moved me. Absolutely. Wow, that's crazy.
It's honestly, even when I tell it, I just get chills. Just what my dad went through. He won't talk about it. I'm pretty sure he only told us recently about the challenges that he had. He never wanted to, my parents didn't want to taint us growing up. So they didn't
Yeah.
tell us the hardships that they went through. They only just gave us positivity and love.
Yes, that's amazing. But you work in this family business. And so I'm interested to know what that's because there can be positives, there can be challenges. So talk to me a little bit about working in this family dynamic. When you sit around for dinner, is it all business? Do you say, okay, we're shelving the business talk? Like, how are you today? Tell me a little bit more about the dynamic of this.
Absolutely. It's the gift and the curse, as they say. Because as you said, the dinner table conversation, it can't not be about business. It's so strange because to me and to my dad, it's one and the same. So if you're talking about family, you're talking about business. But what's interesting is maybe a few years ago, I would see that I wanted my dad to have a break. So if we're all together on the weekend, I didn't want him thinking about business. So I really tried to teach him that on the weekend, maybe don't send that email. If you can wait till Monday, do it on Monday. Not, and honestly, only for his own kind of mental state. So we would get together on the weekends or in the afternoon. Sometimes I would joke with my dad. He did not like it on the weekend. If we'd ask him a question, I would say, Dad, Monday, 9 a.m., we'll have this conversation.
Yes.
It was not received, let me tell you. Family business, it doesn't matter. Your boss will give you hell any time of day. But what's interesting is when I stepped into the role of CEO and now chairwoman, it shifted. So now on the weekends, I'm bugging my dad and he's telling me, can this wait until Monday?
Okay.
The first time it happened, I thought, okay, I don't know what just happened, but it's interesting because I feel like we all balance each other out, which is really good. My mom is always sort of mediator. She's always the calm one. My brother's one that just thinks so quickly, can always come to the table with solutions. So we all have a different role to play. So it's actually amazing in the end of the day.
You guys sound like an amazing team.
It's, you know what, sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Okay.
But what is amazing is that we all have different opinions, and that really helps. If we all thought the same, I think that would be an even bigger problem because then you would never know if you're wrong. But with our family, the one thing that's really funny and maybe not so funny is that we will all tell each other if we think the other person is wrong, which is a good thing and a bad thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess maybe how you say it that
We're
can be
still
helpful.
learning that.
Okay. Oh my gosh. So you guys must be very tapped into the Toronto and Canadian marketplace with everything that you're doing. So COVID had a huge impact on the economy. I'm interested to know, how did this affect business for you guys? And also, what do you foresee for the city post-COVID?
Sure. So obviously during COVID, it was devastating for everybody. There was not one person on the face of the earth that was not touched by COVID. It doesn't mean that you got it. Maybe I know a lot of people have gotten it at this point, but when I first started, every industry, everybody was touched by it at some point. So now when you look back, for me to say, oh my God, the hospitality, we were hit so hard, it doesn't feel right even to say that because we were lucky, we lived through it. And a lot of people, unfortunately, lost their lives through COVID. So for us in this industry, we started seeing numbers drop, my God, like a rocket. And you're just seeing your occupancies drop. And it's not something that any of us have ever experienced. I started noticing, so when COVID hit in Asia, which was in January, right, of 2020, I believe, I actually at that point redeployed our hotels. And I had told them that this is in Asia. if it gets over here or if any of our leisure stops from that part of the world, we need to find new business. So at that point, we redeployed them and we had them look at business only in Canada, which was great because that way, as it started making its way over, we still had a good number of business on the books. Then we hit that state of emergency and everything just dropped. So I would say in Toronto, probably 80% or 90% of hoteliers just closed their doors. They just closed for business and said, nope, we're going to save ourselves, which I understand. For me, I had to put our people first, and we kept 70% of our hotels open. Whichever ones we could keep open, we kept open. I wanted to make sure that we saved jobs, of course, but also I wanted our team to feel that Easton's is here. We're digging our heels in, and they will always have a home to come back to. And that was, for me, that was the most important, is that I wanted our teams to feel that love, to know that we're here for them and we're in this with them, as opposed to closing our doors and saying every man for themselves. We did our best to take care of everyone's health benefits, whether they were not working or working, we were taking care of the health benefits. We also would do these days where we would provide meals, and we would have everyone come in and we would just provide meals, and everybody, again, working or not, they could come in and pick up a meal for the family. We did this around Easter. We did this one other time, I don't recall now. And I also actually started a project called Project Kindness during COVID. And the whole purpose of this was when I started seeing things dwindling down and started seeing the fear in our team, I thought, okay, we need to put love back into the world and we need to put kindness back into the world. So as our occupancies dropped, obviously we had so much food that would have gone to waste. So I actually started Project Kindness, and I asked all of our GMs, if you have extra food, don't throw it away. Let's donate it. And let's donate it to Second Harvest. And that way they can use it for shelters and whatnot. Within 24 hours, our teams are so amazing. I think we raised about 2,000 pounds of food. And we sent it to Second Harvest. Yes. And I feel like those types of things is what kept people inspired and motivated in a time when the world was just hit with such darkness.
Well, Reetu, things like that make such a difference for people. Not that it wasn't a big deal to get all of this food together, and the logistics behind it, I'm sure, were something, but just the thought that you could put that together. How can I turn this into something that's going to help others? It's just finding the light in the darkness.
Absolutely. It was, I think for me, I couldn't sleep. Actually, the night that I came up with the idea, I couldn't sleep because I kept thinking about all of our teams, and I knew that they were scared, and I knew that they just didn't know what was going to happen next. And I thought the best way to combat this darkness, as Martin Luther King said, is with light and is with love. It was literally 9 a.m. in the morning when I sent out this email, and I talked to all of our teams, and everybody's just jumped on board. And it was such an uplifting feeling, exactly as you're saying. It's not about the action or the pounds of food, but everybody came together in a time when everyone was so scared. It was such a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. So now, post-COVID, we're through the worst of it. Knock on wood. Let's hope and pray.
Sure. Yep.
But where do you see the city going now post-COVID? I want to know. Tell me more.
You know what? I was saying this all throughout the pandemic, that hospitality and tourism is going to bounce back really quickly and really hard. I think it's going to. So right now we're starting to see the occupancy levels rise. I don't want to jinx it or anything like that, but I do feel like by next year we'll start to see pre-COVID levels, 2019 levels. But everyone's dying to travel. And I think that with the border closures and all of that, it made it difficult. But now it's a free-for-all. So we actually have a hotel opening in the fall. We opened a hotel during COVID because we're very bullish on this. We know that tourism is not going anywhere. And I really do feel that by this time next year, we'll just be laughing and saying, what? We're back to 2019. It's maybe even higher than 2019. Definitely, I think it's going to bounce back stronger and harder.
Yes. And you know what? This past summer, I actually traveled to Europe, and I could not get over the amount of people that were traveling. See? So people are coming back. They're 100%. Ready. They're so 100%. Ready.
100%.
Exactly. So you have been nominated for a Women Empowerment Award. Again, congratulations. Well deserved, as I'm starting to understand who you are a little bit more. Absolutely well deserved. So it's in the leadership category, and you're one of the finalists. So that's amazing. I'm interested to know, what does empowerment mean to you?
Beautiful. I feel like empowerment is such a strong word, and to be empowered, or to be nominated for an award where they're saying, okay, you're in leadership and you're empowered. For me, it's a duty to empower other women. I think that we still have such a long way to go. We've made huge headway for sure, but we have a long way to go. And it's, on one hand, it's sad when you look at the number of female CEOs or the number of female chairs, it's so small in comparison to men. So the only way we're going to get ourselves forward is if we empower each other. So for me, and for all of the other nominees, I feel like this award and this nomination is just a duty and a responsibility to say, okay, you're in this position and now you have to empower other women. And it's something that I'm so passionate about. And as soon as I saw that nomination come through, I thought, okay, so now it's the universe telling me that it's now your turn to empower other women.
Yes. And why do you feel, again, just digging in a little deeper, why do you feel carving out this space for women is so important? Because you said you're so passionate about it. Why are you so passionate about it?
It was only a few years ago where we weren't even allowed to vote. And I feel like we just have a long way to go. It's really interesting. When I became CEO, I was in a very small group of people that were female CEOs.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still seen as the female CEO. It's not CEO. You're the CEO, which is great on one hand, but on the other hand, why can't it just be normal? I want to live in a world where a female CEO is normal, where females in politics is normal, but we're not in that world. When you have these female leaders that are doing amazing things, part of the amazingness of it is the fact that they're female. And I wish that there was just more equality. So all of our future generations, they can look at it and they say, okay, yes, I can go into politics, I can go into automotives, I can go into hotels, and it's normal. Whereas when we grew up, that wasn't normal. And to
Yeah.
even think about going into those industries, it was so male dominated, it almost felt like it wasn't an option. And I want to make sure that for our future generations, male, female, however you identify, that any industry and option is open to you.
Yes, absolutely. I worked for a company over 10 years ago now, but the CEO was a woman.
Okay.
And there's a ripple effect in that. And for me, as a account manager at the time, watching her open doors for me, like psychologically open doors for me. So I
Yeah.
think also when we see ourselves in the leaders, it breaks down barriers. And I think by you in your position, even if you don't even recognize it, you're breaking down barriers and you're allowing other little girls to say, I can be that one day. It's so inspiring to see women like you in positions that you're in. And like you, I wish it was more common.
Yes, 100%. Thank you so much. And for me, I feel the same when you see someone like Kamala Harris and she's
Yes.
sitting in this amazing position. It makes me think, okay, so things are changing now. And that means I could do that too. Women can do so much. And I feel like we have such a good opportunity right now where for me, being in this role, being chairwoman and being nominated for this award is just showing you that there's so much more opportunity for us. And there's so
Yes.
much more that we can do.
Yes, exactly. You sound like an amazing leader. And I would like to know what qualities have helped you to become so successful.
Interesting. Qualities in me, you're asking, or just in.
Yes, in you.
Okay. You know what? So for me, there's three C's that I live by. Actually, I'm going to lie. I'm going to say four because I grew up with sort of these three C's in my mind, but I've recently added a fourth. And the three C's are courage, confidence, and conviction. For me, as I grew up and growing up in the hotel industry and real estate, I was usually the only woman. Actually, in the beginning, I was the only woman. I was always the youngest. I was usually the only Indian and always the boss's daughter. And that always came with its own sort of challenges and barriers and preconceived notions. So for me, I told myself at a very young age that you're not going to work to prove yourself to anyone, but just prove it to yourself. Just be able to go home at the end of the day and say, I worked my hardest. I did what I was meant to do. It takes a lot of courage to do that, and it takes a lot of confidence to do that. So I taught myself courage and confidence at a very young age and conviction. When I make a decision, I stick to it. And I feel like that is so important as a leader. You can't on both sides, right? You have to take a decision and believe that it's the right way and just keep going down that path. And the last C that I think is probably the most important is curious. I think it is so important to be curious and to be curious about if you have a problem in front of you. Someone may offer a solution, but be curious. Is there more than one way to look at the solution? Are there a million other solutions? I think sometimes it's so important not just to be narrow minded, but to be curious and to just open your mind to the world around you.
Yeah, I think that's really so smart, actually, that curious part, because that, again, breaks away from our preconceived notions
Mhm.
and it opens up our eyes to see how things could be done differently. And I love that. I think that's amazing. So you talk a lot about the different charities, and you mentioned when COVID hit, it was important for you to help and all that sort of stuff. But is there one charity or one or two charities that you feel particularly passionate about?
Sure. So during COVID, I noticed that a lot of companies, almost every company, they pulled back their funding. So if they were doing any sort of philanthropy, they pulled back. I didn't like that at all. I felt that the world at that time, the people that needed it the most they had no funding. My parents actually started a family foundation many years ago when they came to Canada. I don't remember the year, I think it was 2020. I basically rejigged our entire family foundation. I was always a director on the foundation, but I just wanted to be able to give back and to do more. So it's now the Gupta Family Foundation. And since then, we've done projects in Jamaica. So during COVID, a lot of these kids that were in the rural areas of Jamaica, they had no access to education because everything was work from home and school from home. So we donated, I don't remember, 400 tablets, I believe, to Jamaica. So a lot of the causes that I love to support are education related. I'm also now on the board of the Princess Margaret Cancer Foundation. So I'm also hoping that my family and I will be able to make an impact here as well in Toronto.
Congratulations. That's amazing and a very important one to be a part of for sure. I'm sure you guys will do wonderful things for that organization.
Thank you so much. I hope.
So I'm in the mental health world. That's a world that I'm very passionate about. And I always love asking leaders and all of the women who have been nominated for the Women Empowerment Awards, what do you do for your mental health? How do you manage everything? How do you balance it all? Tell me more about that.
Absolutely. Meditation, first and foremost. I meditate every morning. I'm that weirdo that will get up between 5 and 5:30, and I have to get in my daily meditation. I think for me, that would be the most important element to mental health, and just to be able to let go and give yourself that time of peace. I teach meditation, so I can speak about that for an hour. But just in terms of other things, I think it's really important to make time every day, even if it's 10 minutes, to do something for yourself. So I love to dance. I take ballroom classes. I make sure that I do that at least once or twice a week. I work out as well. I think that a lot of times we get so caught up in our 9 to 5 and what we have to do for work that we don't give ourselves that importance, because everything else takes importance. And I feel like as women as well, we're such nurturers that everybody else will come first before us. We'll put our family, our friends, kids, whoever it is, whatever it is, will come before us. But I think that the only way that we can stay as nurturers as we were born to be is we have to be able to take care of ourselves. And I think that even if it means reading a book or binge watching something on Netflix, just doing something for only for yourself, not because someone else told you to, not because someone else suggested it, but something just for yourself. I think even 10 minutes a day makes a big difference.
Exactly. Now, I love meditation. It's something that I had to learn how to do. But for people who are interested in meditation, where does one start?
Such a good question. I would start with, so I obviously, you can YouTube and you can find videos. I teach. So if anyone watching is interested, they can just send me a message and I teach for free. So we can do a Zoom, and I've done a lot of Zoom meditations over during COVID. But I would say the most important thing is just to sit in silence. And I think sometimes as soon as we sit down in silence, your list of to do just starts yelling at you. And I think what's important to note is that, don't get mad at yourself in that moment. When you start thinking about all these other things, it's because your mind is thinking about those things. And if you start bullying yourself and you start saying, oh my God, you're so stupid. Why can't you meditate? Why are you thinking about those things? You're just putting yourself in a negative space. I think at that time, sit. If things come to you, just say, okay, I'm going to address you in 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever that time frame is. And as a first step, I would just concentrate on your breath. Just focus on breathing in and breathing out. There's a Vietnamese monk who's no longer, I think he passed earlier this year. And one of his notions was, every time you breathe, tell yourself, I am home. And I think what his notion was, tell yourself, for me, the way I took that, I am home, is his name is Thich Nhat Hanh. When he would say that, I took that as, you're exactly where you're meant to be. And I think if you can even spend a minute or 2 minutes just breathing and telling yourself you're exactly where you're meant to be, I am home, I am exactly where I'm meant to be, it'll make a big difference.
Wow. And so do you think that your meditation work has helped you throughout your career and your journey with work and all the big decisions you have to make? Do you think you bring that into your work?
Yes. Sorry to interrupt you. 100,000%. I would not be where I am without meditation. I would be a crazy person. 100%.
It's so powerful and I really love it. And I want to bring it more into my life. And I think a lot of people do too. But I think that's great. If anybody's interested, to definitely reach out to you, because I think you would be able to help them with that.
Beautiful.
So in a lot of my other interviews, I haven't really touched on spirituality, but it's a very important part of your life. Has it always been an important part of your life, or is this just something recent for you?
Definitely always been an important part of my life. Growing up, my family's Hindu, and my parents always taught us that religious, spiritual values. And I think in Hinduism, there's so much spirituality. So for me, it's always been important. I always found peace when I would go to our temple that's in Richmond Hill, or at home. So at my parents' house, we have a room that's dedicated to a temple, and I have a room here in my condo. Growing up, we just had a little closet. It was just it was our towel. It was our linen closet. So it wasn't even a place where you could sit. But every time I would do my prayers in the morning, it was just that sense of wholeness, I would say. So for me, definitely, I would say that it's just something that I was born with, and that comes from my parents for sure.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. And you have accomplished so much already. So I'm curious to know, do you have a bucket list? And is there anything that you haven't checked off that bucket list yet?
Yes.
Do you care to share with us?
Sure. I'm just thinking what's appropriate to say. So, to be honest, one of my goals is to be on the Forbes most powerful women list, and not necessarily for in terms of money or success in that way, but for philanthropy, for being able to say that she gave back to the world. I know someone like Angela Merkel was on that list for so many years, and not because she was a Bill Gates of the world, but because she made such an impact on the world. So for me, that's definitely on my list of one day I'll be on
Yes.
that list.
Okay, these are not small bucket things, Reetu. This is like a big bucket list thing. That's a
Yes,
major
yes.
thing.
Sorry, I wasn't. That was the first thing that came to my mind.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. So if you were to go back in time and give a young Ritu some advice, what would that advice be?
Don't talk to that boy.
Ooh,
Joking. Okay, what advice would I give myself? In addition to that, I would say, I would say that you are exactly where you're meant to be. And I would tell my younger self, because I don't believe in having regrets. I feel that whatever you go through, whatever challenges you have, that is, I don't believe that God tests you either. I feel that when this happens or when you have a challenge or barrier, the universe is just showing you that it believes in you. And the universe and God is showing you that we're not testing you, but it's a testament to my belief in you. So that's what I would tell my younger self, that whatever comes your way, you can handle it. It's not a test. It is just a testament to the universe believing in you.
what a beautiful message, Ritu. That's a beautiful message. You are a beautiful woman on the inside and out.
Thank
I've
you.
had such a pleasure interviewing you
Me
today, and what
too.
fun. Thank you so much. And again, congratulations on the nomination. As I said before, deserved. And I can't wait to see what happens on the night of the event. So
Oh, thank
thanks
you
again
so
for
much.
being here.
This was so nice. Thank you so much for having me.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Women Empowerment Awards podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Gideon. Don't forget to grab your tickets to the after party networking event held at the Shangri-La Hotel in Toronto, September 21st. We rise by lifting others. Be well, everyone.